Hey everyone. So this is just an update on the MicroStrategy Tesla pair trading model that I've been working on. Some of you may have seen the previous videos I shared. I have changed the model quite a bit since then. I found some problems with the concept of the model. Basically, the design was kind of like as the ratio moved up and down this range, it was recommending you continually reallocate your ratio of max strategy to Tesla shares. So as it was going up, it was basically moving you out of the asset that was doing better and into the one that was doing worse, which is fine as a starting point, but obviously as a trading strategy, it doesn't really work. And actually, when you do it, when you backtest it, it performs worse than just holding the asset. So I scrapped that, and I tried to come up with a concept for kind of like doing different layers and doubling down as the ratio moves through that range. So as an example, if we think of this range here, which is what we're trading in, this being when MicroStrategy is cheap and Tesla's expensive, and this is where Tesla is expensive, MicroStrategy is cheap relative to each other, and in the middle is the equilibrium where we think they're both kind of equally priced, not in dollar terms, but just relative to each other. So what this model does is when it's in the middle, it puts you at 50-50, both assets. And as it moves up the range, it swaps you very slowly as it goes up. But as it gets nearer to the extreme top and bottom of the range, it swaps more shares across it, or it suggests that you do that. So each of these red triangles represents where a recommended trade. So I'll just go through the settings again just quickly because some of you may not have seen the first video. But the green cells are cells that you can update yourself. Yellow cells are also ones you can update yourself, but they're more advanced settings. And the red cells are just for your information or to make the model work. But the most important settings are these four numbers here. So here's where you can enter your bull target for MicroStrategy and Tesla. So if we think 1300 for MicroStrategy by the end of the year and 655 for Tesla by the end of the year, that's where we would enter this. And that gives us 1.98 as the ratio. And this number is used to determine the top of the range. So this point here is basically 1.98 there. And then here you put your bear target. So if we think that 550 is the target for MicroStrategy and 435 for Tesla as a bear case target for the end of the year, that gives us a ratio of 1.26. So that is that point there. So you can see it's 1.26 there. And by using these two ratios, it creates this top and bottom range, which allows us to have a range that we can trade in. And these yellow cells here represent the ratios for the start of the range. So 0.195 is the bottom here, and 0.935 is the top of the range. You can change these if you want, but obviously I'm not sure why you'd want to do that because we know from looking at the chart that this is basically the bottom of the range, and this is kind of the top of the range, just based on what it did before. So you can change these if you want, but I'd recommend probably keeping those as they are. But these four numbers, definitely you want to play with these because whatever you put for your bull case and bear case price targets will determine how this range works. So if we put in here, let's say we're really bullish about MicroStrategy, but let's put 2000 in. So that gives us a really ambitious range of this range here, and so that means that we're going to be selling. We're going to when MicroStrategy we think could go all the way up to here, which would be like 2.1 here, and then down to here, and then up to here. Eventually, it could get as high as 3.0 as the ratio if we think that this is the correct price targets. I think that's probably a little bit too ambitious, but you can play with these. So as I said, these numbers here change that point there, and these numbers change that point there. So we could increase this to 700, and that gives us a tighter range to work in as we trade like that. Or we can say it's sort of, I don't know, 400, and that gives us a much wider range to work in. So yeah, again, changing these numbers or getting these numbers right will massively affect how this model works. The more accurate you can be with these targets, the better the model will be at working out where you should be given where the ratio is in that range. Hopefully that makes sense. I won't go through these numbers here. I can do a different video on this if it's interesting. It's not particularly useful. It was more for me to troubleshoot this model. This section here is the calculator. So you only use this pretty much at the beginning when you first setting up when you're first starting pair trading. What it does is you enter the number of shares you've currently got for MicroStrategy and Tesla. That tells you how much that bag is worth today. And then it tells you based on where you are in this range. So depending on how you've set this up, right now we're kind of in the bottom part of the range. So we're at a point where we're saying that MicroStrategy is cheap, Tesla's kind of expensive. And so on that basis, it's the model's telling you that you should have 76 shares of MicroStrategy and 24 shares of Tesla. And if the ratio is down here at this bottom point here of the range, it would tell you should have 100 shares or like 100% MicroStrategy and 0% Tesla. So it's just a way to sort of give you a good starting point. If you don't use this model for anything else, in terms of the recommendations, you could just use this as a way to kind of set up a pair trading bag and make sure you've got the optimal amount of starting shares of each asset. And that way you can benefit from this range, from trading within this range. Hopefully that makes sense. Moving down, this is the new part. So on the left-hand side, you've got settings and also information about the performance of the pair trading. And on the right-hand side, you've got a table here with all the dates and all of the corresponding prices for these dates, and then the ratio for MicroStrategy divided by Tesla is that. So what you can do is you can enter in a starting date. So at the moment we've got January 1st last year. So that populates that date in this cell, and then it will then update all these dates going downwards. So if you want to change this to say, I don't know, July last year, oh, you put in July, and then it will update from July, and then it will pull the price from MicroStrategy and Tesla on that date. And it will, what's happened? My Google Sheets is frozen. Let me reload Oh, that's interesting. What happened? Let me try reloading it. Let's go back into it. That's the first time that's happened. I guess because I just messed up the date. Yeah. So anyway, we were doing July, right? So um, it's going to take a little while to load this now because this is like, I guess it cached all the information before. So you can see it's updating it now. Yeah. So it's got all the dates from July the 1st, and then it's got all the prices for MicroStrategy and Tesla for these dates. Just to mention that these prices are the average for the high and the low, or it takes the high and the low of the day and then it averages it out. So what you can do, rather than this is just for your own convenience, but what you could do is on each day that you do a trade, you could actually enter the amounts here manually from the trading platform, so that you get a more accurate ratio and a more accurate price that you did the trade at. So I hope that makes sense. And then you put in here your starting position, so you've got 100 shares of each, and then that will then populate into here, 100 shares, 100 shares. And based on starting on the 1st of July, it's saying that it's telling you that you should trade because that's not the optimal amount of shares. And what you should do is sell all your Tesla and you should move 100% into MicroStrategy. And if you did that, you'd end up with 247 shares of MicroStrategy. So that's how that works. And if you look at the chart on the 1st of July, you can see here, this is the first trade. So we're kind of near the bottom. And it's saying that you should go 100% MicroStrategy. That was probably a little bit not quite the right call because we went down even further. But at the time, you may not have known that, and you might have felt like, this was a bottom here, so this might have felt like a bottom at the time as well. But there are settings that we can play around with to try and tweak this model so that it did nail that bottom. Anyhow, so that explains so I think it's pretty clear, but these red triangles represent days where you need to trade, or it's recommended you should trade. So what happens is, based on the default settings, you get on the 1st of July, it tells you to trade, you go fully MicroStrategy, and then as you come down, it's giving you some advice to trade. So it's saying you should go 212 shares of MicroStrategy and 27 shares of Tesla, and when it gives you that recommendation, it will automatically populate that recommendation in the next day because it assumes that you did that trade. Now, if you didn't do that trade, you could just manually overwrite that recommendation here. So you could put 247.93 and 0 in here, and then it would then overwrite it, and then you wouldn't have the trade. And it would, in fact, it would keep you would keep your positions here until it gets to the next point where it thinks you should trade. So then it will then say you should actually trade on that day, and it's saying 212 shares. So here you can see it's on the next day, it's automatically populate 212 shares for you. So this is the reason I'm mentioning this is because as you can probably see here, it's actually like not done a good job of getting you doing. It hasn't done a very good job pair trading. So you had 247 shares here, and after these swaps, you end up with actually. Oh, actually, I'm lying. It's ended up being okay. Yeah, you've got 289 shares, so you've gained, well, 40 shares, just under 40 or just around 40 shares. So in a matter of a week, you gained 40 shares. So this is an example of where the model has done a good job. But sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes you'll find as you're going through that, well, actually, those were the only trades that yeah, here. So 272. So actually, you've lost some shares here. So, you know, this model isn't a technical analysis tool. It hasn't got like, optimized trend built into it or something like that. All it's doing is using formulas and the range that you've set up in this table, this chart here, to try and figure out the best way to trade shares. Um, so you can see here that, it says you should trade here, but it didn't get this one. And then the next one was here. So basically, these two trades kind of cancel each other out. They're at roughly the same ratio level. So you have to use your common sense a bit here. You, don't blindly just do what it says. Or if you do blindly do what it says, you can look at the performance of what it would have done, and the performance is 31% over just not doing anything. So just to explain here, if you start with 100 shares on the 1st of July, this is how much it would have cost to buy, and this is how much it would have been worth today if you hadn't done any trading. But if you follow the model completely blindly and not use any other common sense, then at the very least you would have made 31%, or you would have had a bag that's worth 85,000, which is a fairly decent return. And if you try, like, you can backtest different dates. So if we start from January, um, you would have made 270%. So, you know, that's fairly decent. And I guess that's because, the longer this would have been basically starting from the beginning, and you would have benefited from all these massive movements. And the more time you give this model, the more trades it will give you, and then obviously the more trades you get, probably most of them will result in profit, or that's the idea. And you can see here that it would have been with these settings, it would have given you 45 trades. Um, so yeah, if we go through some other dates, you can check this for yourself. You just move forward, 1st of February. If you started then, right, so that wouldn't have been a good place to start. With this model, it would have only given you 39%, which is still pretty good, right? I mean, this is just blindly following what the model says, and then 114%. So you would have done all these trades, and you would have ended up with doubling your bag from 64 to 139. So it's not bad, right? What you can do though, is you can, so when you have the IA suite and the ATR model and IADSS and all these kinds of models, the way that they work, or my understanding of the way they work, is that you basically tweak the settings to get the best win rate. So that means, like, for example, you might change, there's all sorts of different settings. I mean, it's been a while since I've looked at the IA suite because I don't subscribe to it anymore. Need to get back on that. But by changing the settings, you can figure out like the best settings to give you the best win rate. And the reason you do that is because it's retrospectively looking at, if you configure the tool to give you to work out what the best settings are retrospectively. And the aim of that is to then use those settings going forward. So we hope that by setting up with these settings, you get 270% performance for the last year. So hopefully you get 270% performance for the next year, assuming that you've set this up correctly and it continues on this kind of path. So your mileage may vary. No, not financial advice. Past performance doesn't equal future performance, whatever the cliches are. But anyway, the reason I'm saying that is because you need to play around with these different settings. So now here's my first confession. This tool, or the logic and the formulas that this tool uses, it was my idea, but ChatGPT did a lot of the heavy lifting. And I even, asked ChatGPT to suggest different ideas and different settings that can be user configurable in order to optimize this tool and to try and increase this win rate, this percentage profit. So some of these settings are not exactly very clear to me what they do, but I'll try and explain them best I can. And I've also added some information in here so you can read through this and try and to understand what it's doing on the back end. Some of them are more clearer than others. So this setting here is basically using these Fibonacci ratios to determine how heavy your swapping it or swapping between the assets. So to make it a bit clearer, if you imagine that you are basically at this point here, this is the middle point, which is equilibrium. You then move up the range, so the ratio goes up, and then you're basically going from 50% each to 57.1% MicroStrategy, 42.9% Tesla. And then when you go up to the next level, you then have 85.7% MicroStrategy, 14.33% Tesla. And then when you get to the top of the range, you want to be fully into MicroStrategy. And basically what it's doing is it's kind of doubling down each time. So you get that kind of doubling down effect. And you're not constantly trading, you're just doing it at certain key points. If you don't want to do that, what you can do is you can change these you can switch to alternative. So you can put that here, and then you can see how that affects the performance. So if we switch that to Fibonacci, so you can see it's 270%, and if you do alternative, you get worse performance. So what's happening here is like there is a so you can weight this basically. So what right now what it's doing is it's going from 50 to 60. That's a 10% increase. But when it goes down and MicroStrategy is less performant and Tesla's better, then there's a massive jump. So I mean that's probably not. I've actually just realized that's not probably a very good idea. So maybe we want to make that equal. So we'll do 40. So right now it's 50% in the middle is equilibrium. So you're 50-50. When it goes up slightly, it changes by 10% towards MicroStrategy. And when it goes down, it drops 10% MicroStrategy and 10% increase on Tesla. Hopefully that makes sense. So probably what you want to do is have this is the middle, and then this number and this number are the same but inverted, and then this number and this number are the same but inverted, and this number and this number are the same but inverted. So this would be 0, this would be 100. 40, 60. So then if we've got 80 here, which is 30 more than 50, then this should be 20 if we want to make it equal for each one. So yeah, once you've tweaked these settings to give you that kind of weighting between equilibrium as you go up the range or down the range, you can weight it so that it goes harder or softer into each asset. Once you tweak that, you can then see performance of what that's like, and you can even switch between the two to try and figure out which one's better. So it's a way to A/B your back testing. Anyway, it looks like Fibonacci is the better performer, so we'll leave it on that. Now, here is where I am a little bit fuzzy about what the settings do. So scaling factor, it says here that it controls the scaling of the trade layers. A higher value results in more aggressive trade actions as the ratio moves away from the center. So what I read from that and what I think ChatGPT has done is it's applying a transformation to these weightings. So I don't exactly know what that number means, but if we tweak it, so again, the important thing is to dial in the settings to kind of get the best performance, and we can see that down here. So we could try, I mean, it says 3 or 6, so let's try 6. So we get a worse performance. Let's try 1. That's worse. 2. So it looks like 3 is the best so far. That's worse. 5. Yeah, and let's try 7. Okay, so we got 3. 3 is the best. I think I put 6, 3 or 6 because when you try different dates and you go forward in time, 6 seemed to work quite well as well. And then layers. So this is, I think this relates to the number of layers that are being used here. So this is the middle layer. This is layer 1, layer 2, layer 3, I think. So I'm not sure why. It may be that actually, yeah, maybe actually I don't need to. Maybe it should be 1 to 3, I think here. Let's try 3. Yeah, I think 3 is the maximum. If we do 2, that doesn't do anything either. Let's try 1. Okay, so one's worse. Again, and I apologize for this because this is quite a complicated model, and when you start using AI to kind of like help you a lot with the way to setting up the model, inevitably you start to you start to lose track a little bit of like exactly how the back end is working. And I think it's a the payoff is that if I had just designed the model and the formulas myself, I probably wouldn't have been able to achieve the same performance as if I'd used ChatGPT to make these to give us these settings. So all I can say is sorry that I don't quite understand what they're doing, but you can see the effect that it has. And obviously all these settings, basically what they're doing is they're changing the number of trades that are hitting, and also the weighting of like this changes the weighting of how many shares are being swapped. So you definitely can see what it's doing, but just understanding exactly why it's doing that is not it's not 100% clear to me. So anyway, let's go back to 3 for that one, and then threshold. So this is basically the minimum percentage change required to trigger a trade. If the ratio changes by less than the amount, no trade occurs. So what that means is like if let's say the ratio today is 1 point I think it's 1.0 what is it 0.97. Well, actually this is not quite right because the market hasn't opened yet, so this will probably shoot up when these update. But let's say it is 0.97 as the live ratio. What happens if the ratio goes up to 0.98? That isn't a big jump, right? So if it goes up to 0.898 and these settings kick in. So 0.998 also happens to be hitting one of these layers. It'll then trigger a trade. Now, maybe that's what you want, but probably you don't want to swap at 0.97 and 0.98. You want to space the trades apart a bit to kind of ride it up and ride it down. So what you can do is you can make sure there's a threshold or there has to be a minimum of a certain amount of percentage change between each ratio in order to trigger a trade alert or a trade OK alert. So we can try like 2%, and that gives us slightly better 282. Let's try 3%. And that gives us less. So again, we've just got to dial it in. And obviously, the higher this number, then the less trades you'll get. So if we do 1, you get 45 trades and you get 270%. If you do 2% difference, but minimum 2% between each ratio change, then you only get 29 trades in a year, but you get a better performance. So you can dial this in not only just to get the best percentage, but also to suit what kind of trader you are. Like if you like to trade regularly, then maybe you want to do a lower percentage. And if you want to trade in less frequently, then tweak accordingly. Cool. I'm gonna go through just a few of these things here. So I can't remember, I've recorded this video a couple of times, so I can't remember if I've mentioned this, but this is this is the start date of when you start trading. So if you wanted to start today, you would put today's date in. So we could do 2025 02. Let's put in Monday. And so we start with 100 shares of each, and then you've got 100 shares here, 100 shares here, and straight away it's saying you should be trading. So you basically sell. It's saying you should sell all your Tesla and buy 100% MicroStrategy. That's because right now we are quite near the bottom of the range. So again, you might want to tweak this to try and pull this trade alert down. But I think the reason, well, actually, no. So let me correct myself. The first day you do this, it will always give you a trade OK, a trade alert, even wherever you are on the chart. And the reason for that is because you always want to you always want to change the ratio of shares that you've got to start with. So so hopefully that makes sense. So basically where you are on the chart is saying you should go heavy MicroStrategy. It's near the bottom. It's not at the bottom, but it's near the bottom. And then that gives you 206 shares of MicroStrategy, and straight away you've got 1.89% profit. So this is what you would have if you had kept 100 of each. You'd have 64,000. But because you swapped fully to MicroStrategy, you've avoided the Tesla downturn that we've had the last few days, and MicroStrategy has kind of been okay. So you've got a bit of profit. And then moving forward, what you would do is each day you can just let the model do its thing. It will automatically update these cells with the prices, the live prices. Again, these are averages. They aren't, obviously you can't have one price for the whole day. So I just chose the average between the high and the low of the day, and that will only populate when the day's finished. But what you can do is when you decide that you want to trade, or when it tells you that you should maybe trade, you can just manually type the numbers in here the price of when you traded. That will give you the ratio here. And actually, also, when you do that, it will tell you, it will also, the decision engine will look at that and say whether or not it thinks you should trade. Now, then you can decide whether or not you want to actually do the trade. So what it's saying here is right now you shouldn't trade, but what you could do is let's say right now you do want a bit of Tesla, what you can do is for today, which is the 12th, you can say, okay, I want to have 150. And you want to so when you buy 150 shares, or when you sell, you sell what, 76 shares. With that cash, you'll then know how many Tesla shares you can buy. So then you buy the Tesla shares. So I guess you could probably buy about 70 odd shares of Tesla. And then when you've done that, it will then automatically update the rest of the chart, the rest of this. And then this trade logic will then calculate based on your new ratios. And I can see here a possible bug. It looks like this is again God, I don't know why it's doing that. Sometimes this trade okay thing won't trigger, but this is like doing its job, right? So you can see on this day, on the 5th of ah, I see the problem. I see the problem, yeah. It's obviously this is in the future. So there's a bug here. The bug is that for some reason it's deciding that you should be swapping your shares in this future date. But we haven't got to that date yet, so you can just ignore that. Um, anyway, I'm kind of rambling. I mean, the point I'm trying to make is that you can use this table in two different ways. One is just to blindly follow what it says, and then just swap backwards and forwards between the shares based on what it's saying here, which will then feed into this bit, which is your actual position. Um, and that will give you the profit that it says down here. Or what you can do is you can use this to record your manual trades. So if you were just like today, like I said, if you were deciding, well, right now we're not at the bottom, and I do want to have a bit of Tesla. So right now you could just say, um, when you started, it said you should do this 206.66 of zero Tesla. So what you could do is you could say, okay, let's put 206 in here and zero in there. So what it's saying is, well, let's put one in there so it doesn't break the formula. So it's saying you should actually have 155 and 50. So you could use this to calculate what your position should be. So then we come in here, put in 150 there, 155, and we put in let's put 49 in there. And then that sets us up. So here we'll put in the price for today. Let's say it's gone to 350. I don't know, that's not right, but and then here it's 320. So we've got the ratio of 1.09. So you're just literally using this to record your trades. And what it's doing is it's capturing your portfolio value, your value of your MSTR, your Tesla, if you haven't got any Tesla here. Um, so hopefully that makes sense. So again, just to reiterate, there's two ways to do it. One is to follow this and use it as to give you trading, tips on when to swap and how many shares to swap, or you can manually do it yourself, or you can manually do it yourself and use this calculator to figure out how many shares you should have on a given day. Um, hopefully that helps. So I'm just going to undo all this because we probably want to, yeah, let's keep undoing. Yeah, cool. Um, yeah, I think that's pretty much it. I mean, there's if you're playing around with these settings, there's a chart down here which is a replication of this chart. It's a bit easier to get to. And also, if you, I think I mentioned in the previous video, if you want to, down here you can see it plots very faintly the live Tesla and MicroStrategy prices. So you can see that here, which is related to this vertical column. If you want to hide that, you can do that. So you can just see the ratio here. And these numbers here reflect the top of the range and the bottom of the range as of today. So right now we're here, and the range that you've configured here, you can see that 0.79 is what we could call the floor of the range, and 1.52 is the top of the range as of today. So if for some reason the ratio shot up to 1.52, absolutely you know that like based on your predictions for the price targets, then we're at the top of the range and we can swap out. So you could use this as well as a way to kind of to trade as well. Just looking at the chart here, looking at these numbers, figuring out where it's probably going to go based on where we've been before and based on what we think MicroStrategy and Tesla's going to do. Yeah, I think that's pretty much everything. I'm going to stop talking now because I think I've rambled on enough. Um, I've kind of been looking at this for weeks now and hours a day, and I've lost semblance of reality, and I've got blinkers on. And I'm probably there's probably some issues with this model. I think that we found one here when it in the future it shouldn't be changing numbers there, so I need to fix that. But what I'd really appreciate if people can just play with this, try different dates here, try just go through time and check out what happens if you started trading on, for example, May the 1st. You can see that you would have made 84% if you'd followed this model. So you can see, as you go through time, it's kind of okay. So obviously, the closer we get to the present day, the less profit you'll make because the less trades it'll recommend. So it doesn't have enough opportunities to make those trades. But that makes sense, right? Yeah, I think that's everything. I'm going to stop talking, going to stop recording. I'm going to share the model and this video. Hopefully it makes sense for everyone and it's useful. Give me a shout if you've got any questions. Thank you, everyone.